What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here. And you know that to be true. I am so glad I'm here. Welcome to Who Do You Think You Are? A podcast dedicated to helping you learn how to have the highest regard for yourself, how to live from a place of genuine self-respect and self-love, and how to make yourself a priority in your own life. Meet me here each week for curated tips and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological masks, connect with your truest essence, and simply live life more easily. Why? Because we know that when we approach life in this way, we naturally and effortlessly and organically have more room, more generosity, and more love for one another. And dear friends, when have we needed that more than tonight? I am so glad that we are together. Last week, you may have noticed that we had a tech glitch of some sort, and I was not able to get on the air. And I really want to extend my appreciation to those of you who waited patiently and supported me and kept me level-headed, in those few moments. Thank you for that. And thank you for coming back this week. We have a wonderful conversation for tonight. We're going to get into it in just a moment. I invite you to interact with me, comment, ask a question in the chat, and just be reminded that all of the information presented here on the podcast and anywhere else on my social media, on my blog, is intended for educational purposes only. It is not meant as a substitute for psychotherapy in any way. And I just want to emphasize, if you are experiencing anything troubling or pressing or of an urgent matter, please call someone. Call someone right away. Don't wait. If you need help with a referral, reach out to me and I'll do my best to get you linked up with somebody very good and qualified. But please reach out. You don't have to go through a tough time by yourself. So, and also, let me just say, if you find value in the information here, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. You know, that helps the algorithm to be happy. And when the algorithm is happy, it shows the show to a wider audience so more people can discover the power that exists within them and the power that, when tapped into, really can transform your life. So like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Okay, so we are here to discuss a topic that I actually love talking about. It's probably if there were an anchor topic in my practice, it's probably this one. And that is difficult conversations. Difficult conversations. You know, if you're alive, walking this earth, you will have had, will continue to have difficult conversations, because where two or more are gathered, there is bound to be a difference of opinion, misunderstanding, assumptions, all kinds of things that interfere with message received being the message intended. And that's where conflicts develop. And I have to say that, and this to me was very interesting early on in my practice, it seemed to me that people have conflicts all the time, but what often occurs is the way we go about handling the conflict, the way in which we attempt to resolve the problem is oftentimes the very thing that magnifies the problem. Isn't that interesting? The way we try or attempt to handle the conflict ends up being the very thing that inflames the conflict, magnifies it, and makes it harder to, to resolve. So tonight, I hope to cover some of the basics of how to approach a difficult conversation. First of all, why they're so darn difficult to begin with, how we can mentally prepare ourselves to have a good, difficult conversation. And by good, I mean, hopefully, a little less difficult, but constructive, kind, compassionate, respectful. Did I say respectful? Because I think that's the number one message that we want to convey, regardless of what the other person does or no matter what their language is. We want to conduct ourselves in a way that really reaches for the high ground. Because when we reach for the high ground, we stand the better chance of bringing out the better in the other person. So, I often hear people say, well, why should I go first? Why should I go first? Well, you have to go first because you just do. Because if we desire to expand our consciousness, if we desire to have more peaceful interactions, if we want to be the peace we want to see in the world, it begins with our personal orbit. And it is up to each of us, and those of you who are attracted to this station and this show already know this, that we have to be the ones to set the tone. And I submit to you that that's a wonderful thing. Taking it upon yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to create and then hopefully co-create the best, more meaningful conversation, understanding that I can possibly do. So that's why it's up to each of us to go first. All right. I see some people are joining the chat. Thank you so much. Good to see you. I will get to the chat in just a little bit, but I want to welcome you. So, difficult conversations. What makes them so difficult? What makes them so touchy? Or what makes us so touchy about them? What makes us so anxious? What gives us the sweaty palms, the lump in our throat? And what makes us really want to avoid them almost at all costs? I had someone say to me recently, I would rather have a root canal. I would rather have a root canal than have a difficult conversation that may lead to conflict. So that's the other thing. As I talk tonight, I'm going to be weaving in a few points about conflict. Now, conflict deserves a whole show unto itself, but I am going to, conflict and difficult conversations are really inseparable topics. So you'll hear me talk about both. Now, why do we have such trepidation in the first place when it comes to difficult conversations? Well, the answer to that is really pretty simple. It's because where there's a difficult conversation, there is the potential for conflict. And I think many of us worry about conflict because we worry about the end point. We worry about making the other person perhaps irritated with us, angry with us. We worry that we won't feel heard. We're concerned we may feel dismissed, that our point of view doesn't matter. These are all unpleasant things to anticipate. And I think the worst of it is we worry that we're going to be rejected in these different ways, cut off, judged, labeled as difficult or unreasonable, and bottom line, kind of cast aside. So let's just wrap all that up with a wider net called rejection. That's the thing we fear the most. in most cases. Now, a little personal anecdote. The first time I became aware that there was this thing called a difficult conversation, um, it really took me by surprise. It was many years ago, probably, I'm going to guess and say maybe 25 years ago. I was at a Broadway performance of Les Mis, which, if any of you have seen or uh, the production or read the book, you know that it's a very heavy story. It's about revolution and redemption in France in the 1800s, and it's really very heavy, but beautiful, and the music is just beautiful. So there I was, um, at the performance, and there came this moment. It's actually an iconic moment in Broadway production where the show reached a crescendo, and the protagonist was about to sing a beautiful, beautiful song. It was one part hymn, two parts prayer, one part plea. I mean, it was really, really beautiful. And the song "Bring Him Home" is sung, I believe, in a I don't exactly know what it's called, a high soprano or falsetto, I believe. Anyway, you could just imagine. It is a pin drop moment in the production. At that exact moment, the couple in front of me, now, mind you, you could hear a pin drop. The couple in front of me thought that was a good time to have a little chat. And when I say chat, I mean a fairly audible, I heard what they were talking about. I was right behind them. And I could see people, on either side of me were kind of, glancing around, clearly, uh, you know, wondering about the inappropriateness of talking at that moment. It was very distracting to me. Anyway, what was I going to do? I thought to myself in a split second, if I don't say anything, and I miss the eloquence, the beauty of this moment, I'm going to feel upset with myself that I didn't take care of myself and say something. Also, I think I felt a little bit of a responsibility to the other people who were looking around, and I felt as though I needed to be the voice of those other people in the seats. So I didn't have much time to think about it, obviously, but I leaned in, and I think I might have touched the shoulder, or well, not the shoulder, but I put my hands on the back of the seat, and I said something like, "Pardon me, you're probably not aware of it, but your voices are being distracting to me. Would you mind holding your conversation?" Just like that. And the person, I mean, there was a couple, but the woman, as I recall, just nodded. Okay. She didn't seem annoyed. And the conversation stopped. And that was that. And then when the performance was over and we got up, we kind of found ourselves walking out of the theater together, side by side. And we had a little chat. Wasn't the performance extraordinary? And she apologized again. And I said, "Thank you. I appreciate that. And what a great, memorable show." And that was that. But I came away from that everyday experience. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to you, it's happened to all of us. I came away with this notion that that interaction could have gone, I guess, badly, you know? Um, it could have been much more awkward than it was. And I was very happy that it wasn't. But that got me thinking about difficult conversations. And then, as I said, clients come in and they talk about their difficult interactions, but I can see the way in which they approach the resolution of these conflicts, these difficult talks, sometimes makes the whole thing worse. So tonight, I hope to share some strategies for how you can handle your own mindset going into a difficult conversation, and what you can do in the midst of a talk like that. If things are going well, how you can continue, and if things go a little bit sideways, what you can try. So I hope you're with me. We're going to continue with that. Now, I want to mention there are different types of difficult conversations. And pardon me if you hear me shuffling papers. I have my notes. I don't want to miss anything here. I've identified three types. There may be more of difficult conversations. One is when you have to deliver bad news, but you're not the cause of the bad news. I think of doctors who have to tell their patient the biopsy came back positive and you have a serious illness here. That's a difficult conversation to have. But the doctor is just the messenger. The doctor was in no way cause of the difficult news. So that's one type. Another type of difficult conversation is what is it? I've lost my place. Ah, found it. That's when you have to give feedback to another person, and the feedback, of course, if the feedback is positive, no problem. That's always easy. That's often a pleasure. But what do you do if the feedback is negative and you're giving a performance review, or you have to actually let somebody know that they're terminated? I mean, that's a really tough conversation to have. But then the other difficult conversation, and the one that I'm going to be really concentrating on tonight, is the one where you have a difference of opinion with someone, or there's a misunderstanding, or you feel that something someone said or did just didn't sit well with you. Maybe your feelings are hurt, maybe you're angry, maybe you're irritated, maybe you're bewildered, and you want to say something to the other person, but you don't know where to begin, you don't know how to start, and you're afraid that if you do, you might jeopardize the friendship, or if it's a family member, you might create some sort of rift. So this is the most common type of difficult conversation that we dread. It's an optional conversation on one level, meaning you don't have to have it. Unlike the performance review, right? If it's your job to give someone a review, then you have no choice in the matter. If you have to fire someone, you may not have a choice. But in the conversations we're talking about tonight, you totally have a choice. And that's where it gets interesting, because where you have a choice, you can either come barreling through and being very heavy-handed and approach the conversation in a way where you are just so eager to establish your rightness, your being correct, or, as is more typical, back away from the whole thing and just avoid it and let time go by and never really let the person know how you're genuinely feeling. And those of you who have been listening to this show know that what we talk about here is authenticity, how to really walk this earth being the real you, without facades and without masks. Now, that doesn't mean, and I emphasize this, that doesn't mean walking around being brutally honest. Have you come across people who do that? They tend to feel proud of themselves because, well, I'm just being honest. But if they lack tact, if they lack sensitivity, if they're not really good active listeners, then what you're calling just being honest is really perhaps just being unkind and trying to assert your point of view in the name of honesty, but not really the best way to go. All right. So here we talk about being genuine while being tuned in to the person you're talking with. So I want to frame, I'm going to give you some strategies in just a bit, but I want to frame this with, if you think of it as bookends, where you begin the conversation, any difficult conversation, conveying the spirit in which you're having this talk. In other words, I want to talk to you, and we'll talk about specific language in a couple of minutes, but attitudinally, hey, you want to convey, hey, I'm bringing this up in the spirit of clearing the air. I'm bringing this up in an atmosphere of closeness. I'm not bringing this up to make you wrong. I'm not bringing it up to say, gotcha. I'm bringing this up so that at the end of our talk, we hopefully have better communication, a deeper understanding, and maybe even get a bit closer. And if we can't get closer, we have at least gone a ways toward understanding how far apart you are from your counterpoint, from the other person, how far apart you are, and you've done so respectfully and kindly. Okay? So I want to bookend this by saying start the conversation somehow conveying the spirit in which you're having the talk and extend your appreciation to the other person for being willing to have it, right? And by the way, you know what's coming, they don't. So the other person may feel a little off kilter. Be patient with that, right? And let them know that you value their time and their willingness to have this talk. So that's one bookend. And the other bookend, keep this in mind, is at the end of the conversation, let the person know how you're walking away. Let the person know how you feel. Oh, I appreciate this talk. Thank you. I feel better now. Or I have more clarity around the situation. Or thank you for this time and this opportunity. I have a better notion of how things got to where they got and how we got here. And that gives me more to work with. And even if the conversation or the issue is not completely resolved, you can say that too. You can say, well, you know what? Again, thank you. I'm going to digest this. I'm going to give this some more consideration. If I feel that I want to have a sequel, a continuation of this conversation, would you be open to that? Because I don't feel quite resolved, but there's a lot for me to consider here, and I'm going to do that. Is it okay if we meet up again, if there's more, or if you have more? Because you also want to say, how do you feel about our talk? Where, how did this land, and how are you coming away from this? Okay, so that's an attitudinal frame, because as you know, if the other person detects you are defensive, you are coming from a place where you have to be right, where you can't be told anything, you know best, what is that going to do to the other person? Is it going to elicit the best in them? Is it going to help them keep an open mind? Is it going to make them any more receptive to what you have to say? Of course not. It's going to make all that less. So, this is our frame for how to have a difficult conversation. I hope that by the end of tonight's talk, I hope that you will feel like you have more of a handle, more of kind of a scaffolding with which you can have these talks and not be so afraid of them and not ghost anyone, not leave anybody hanging, not leave things, in such a state of unresolvedness that they feel uncomfortable. And that you don't do that to yourself. because we know as that snowball rolls down the hill, you avoid one thing with them, then it's harder to ever go back, and things kind of layer up. And before you know it, that person may not even be in your life or in your orbit anymore. And neither of you may really know why, or the other person may never know why because they don't know what's in your head. And that's really not a kind thing to do. I think most of you would agree with that. So let me just go to the chat, say hello to a couple of listeners, and then we're going to take a short break and do strategies when we come back. So, Anthony, good evening. Good evening. Good to see you. I hope you're enjoying the show and finding something of value for yourself here, Anthony. Still Bill, welcome. Still Bill says, I had to learn to give others some time to digest what I said and then formulate a response. Not everyone runs at Bill's speed. Well, that's true. That's true. Um, you know, one of the things that happens in difficult conversations, because we have a speedy mind, uh, maybe that's you, Bill, or because you are so eager to make the next point that you don't completely take in what the other person is saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you're rushing to make your point. Or a big one, you're not making eye contact. When you make eye contact with someone, first of all, that's just so important for so many reasons. But I find that when I make eye contact in a difficult conversation, it slows me down. It slows me down. And of course, looking in someone's eyes and allowing them to look into yours provides a lot of information. Provides a lot of information. Sometimes I'll talk to someone and I can literally see they're blinking me out. Has that ever happened to you? Literally, they're blinking me out. They're blinking their eyes, and if I notice that, I might say, "Gee, what was that just hard to hear?" Um, uh, you know, Sometimes I'll even say, it depends on the conversation, but I'll say, um, I'm not sure that I stated that as clearly as I heard it in my head. Can you feed that back to me, please, and let me know what you heard so that I could see if that's what I meant? Sometimes I'll even say, uh, let me just hear myself speak something so I could see if I agree with myself. Let me see if the way I'm languaging this right now is aligned with the point I'm trying to make, because we all get tongue tied, right? We all search for the right words, and sometimes the older we get, the harder it is to retrieve certain words. So it's okay to check it out, to make this communication explicit with the other person. So often we feel that we have to have the thing figured out before we say what we're going to say. And I think we need to have some idea of what we want to say and why. But a conversation is a collaboration. It's figuring things out together, right? So, Catherine, good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Patricia, welcome. Great talk, Kathy. Thank you. Love the Les Mis story. Yeah. What if the person is prickly and extremely defensive and you just know they are likely going to react poorly? Do we still bother to go there? I'm going to answer your question more directly once I get into strategies, Patricia. And if I don't, please raise your hand again and let me know, because that's a very important conversation. In no way do I want to paint the picture that this always ends rosy, because it doesn't. And there are many reasons for that. And one reason is that some people are prickly, and for reasons having to do with their own history, they have a very difficult time. And by difficult time, I mean it's somewhat threatening to them to think that they've made a mistake and they're going to be caught and they're going to be embarrassed or shamed. This is what they might be anticipating. And sometimes, Patricia, it's hard to wade through that. It's hard to unravel that. Not always, but sometimes. Okay. Wayne, welcome. Welcome, Wayne, all the way from Calgary. It's good to see you. Janine, welcome. Let's see. Janine, I'm going to read it from the screen if it can find its way to the screen. Janine, I love asking, what do you think I'm saying when I feel unheard? Then I can hear the other person rephrase and confirm or deny whether what I said came across. Yeah, let me read that again. I love asking, what do you think I'm saying when I feel unheard? Then I can hear the other person rephrase it, I guess, and confirm or deny whether what I said came across. Yeah, you're asking for no, not exactly feedback. You're just asking if what you said and how you stated it was received by the other person. And you can course correct, because if what they heard isn't what you said, you can then say, okay, thank you. Not exactly what I meant. I'd like to take another pass at that. So Janine, excellent question. Excellent question. Okay, another person, Ari. Ari, that's a good one, Mama. Okay. Okay, glad you think so. Glad you think so. You like Carl Jung. Yes, I do too. I do too. I love his quotes. What's that quote? There are many, but the one I'm thinking about, something about if you're, I'll paraphrase, if you're not self-aware, things will happen to you and you'll just call it destiny. But you have no idea the hand you had in creating that destiny because you're not tuned into yourself. Trust me, he was much more eloquent. If anyone can pull that quote up, I'd very much appreciate it. So thank you so much for those comments and questions in the chat. Let's take a short break. When we come back, strategies, I have about 10 of them. I can run through them in the time allowed, and I think you'll find them interesting. So you're listening to Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, talking this evening about the thing many of us do not care for and in fact dread: difficult, touchy, awkward conversations. Stay tuned. After the break, we'll talk more. Stay with me.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What would Louise say? Join us every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Hosted by Reverend Martine Bernard. Explore the wisdom of Louise Hay. Brought to you by New Thought Media Network. Dive into Louise's teachings. Experience healing and empowerment. Reverend Martine shares insights. Connect with a contemporary audience. Unlock your potential. Transform your life with love. Embrace positivity and healing. Join our vibrant community. Ready to join us? Let's spread love and wisdom together. Please like, share, and subscribe. Only on New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here. And welcome back. I'm Catherine Duca, your host, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach. And we are talking about how to have a difficult conversation. And if you are listening to this show, that means you are very much alive. And if you are alive, you have difficult conversations. Difficult conversations will find you wherever you are. They are inescapable, unavoidable, and it is a good idea to have some strategy in your tool belt that you can bring with you to any and every difficult conversation. And again, going back to something Patricia asked, it's not, it doesn't, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that the conversation is going to end rosy. But I think when we approach these talks kind of scattershot, rather than with a framework, I think they tend to go askew. So I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques, I guess, or not techniques, but things to keep in mind. I included these in my newsletter this morning, and someone wrote me and said, I think because there are 10 of them, said, oh, these are like the 10 commandments of how to have a difficult conversation. I guess that's one way to look at it. So here we go. We'll just dive in. Okay, number one, it's important to check your motivation. This is very important. Check your motivation, which is to say, have a difficult conversation with yourself before you talk to anybody else. Have a difficult conversation with yourself first. Ask yourself, why am I having this conversation? Why am I having it now? What is my objective for bringing the issue up? Do I just want to vent? Do I just want to get something off my chest? Do I want to kind of do a gotcha to the other person? You know, do I just want to kind of place them in a corner? Because that's not really the best motivation. What might happen if I did not bring this up, or if I do not bring this up? Will it make matters worse? And if so, for whom? For me, for the other person, for both of us? So checking your motivation is really step one and very important. Why am I having this? Why now? What's my objective? How do I hope the other person will respond? Although it's good to note that, but that's neither here nor there, because it's their right to respond how they see fit or how they choose to. And what might happen if I avoid this conversation and never have it? So, number one. Number two, don't let the awkwardness stop you. Don't let the awkwardness stop you. Doing hard things always takes us out of our comfort zone, right? Growth can be no other way. By definition, growth means we go beyond our growth edge and we're in a little bit deeper end of the pool. Now, I rarely suggest any of my clients, or I don't do this myself, where I suggest they jump into the deep end, because it's too much. It's too intimidating. It's just too much. So it's better to ease in to a difficult conversation, grounding yourself letting the person know the atmosphere, the spirit in which you're bringing this to their attention. Let them know from the onset, by the way, hey, listen, this might be awkward for both of us. Or listen, this isn't easy for me to bring up, and it may not be easy to hear, but I think the alternative is worse. I think if I don't bring this up, I think that I'll feel uncomfortable, and I might become distant. And I don't want to do that. So I'm bringing this to you in the hopes that we can clear the air, have a better understanding. Okay. So, work through that awkwardness. And I think if you language it something like that, I think you'll put the other person more at ease because you're not pouncing, right? It's not the energy of coming at. It's the energy of kind of, allowing the best conversation to take place. Right? Number 3, Bill said this before. Give the other person the room to have their own reaction to what you're telling them. Right? You've known what's been on your mind for quite some time. I mean, whether it's a day or a year, you know that you were going to approach the person with this conversation. They know nothing of the sort. They're just there. So the person needs a moment to digest. I think that's why it's helpful to say, this could be a touchy, delicate conversation. Let them take a beat and then tell them what you have to tell them. All right? Give room to digest. And if the person says something back to you that you need a moment to digest, don't feel you have to respond, in a rapid way. You can take a beat. You can say, let me think about that for a second. Let me just think about that for a second. If the person, if the other person says you, I know that might get your shoulders up. That might make you defensive, but you can say, I'll include that here. If you feel yourself bristling or getting on the defensive, one thing you can say that I find very helpful is, hearing you say that makes me want to get defensive, but I'm going to try not to. Or I'm trying not to get defensive as I hear you, talk. So I'm just going to take a breath. I'm just going to take a beat and digest what you're saying. If the person says something and they are either projecting onto you something that you don't feel you said, it was not what you meant, I think it's okay to say, let me think about that for a second. What I'm hearing you say is, and repeat back, like as Janine suggested, you can do it to the other person. Okay, what I think you said was, or what I heard was, that's better. What I heard was A, B, C. Gee, that's hard to hear. It's hard not to feel defensive as I hear you say that. That didn't really match my experience. You heard me say something, but that something didn't really match my inner experience or my intention. So if it's okay with you, let me rephrase that in a way that, matches what I have in my head, in a way that's in sync and aligned with my intention. Okay? So that's what you can do when you feel yourself starting to become prickly yourself. The other person isn't always the prickly one. I've been known to be, rather prickly at times. I wish I had these 10 commandments. Okay. Number 5, listen to understand, not simply to rush in and make your next point. Okay. Self-explanatory. Listen to understand. The other person has a brain. The other person, probably knows what they're talking about in their subjective experience. and they're trying to let you know what their experience was. Don't invalidate it. Don't say they're wrong. Feelings are not wrong. It's just that the way they feel and the way you feel don't match up. How many times have you heard me say? Two or more people can have different experiences of the same experience, right? You thought what someone said was hysterical. The other person thought it was insulting. We hear things differently. It goes through, the gears of our mind, of our history, of our past experiences, of our defense mechanisms, our sensitivities. And by the time it comes out, it has run through all of that. So you have to expect some little discord. Okay. Ask better questions. Ask better questions. It's your job to ask the better question. As I said before, you're the one who wants the better conversation. You're the one who wants the higher ground. You're the one whose consciousness is expanding. You want to create and invite the other person to co-create a good experience with you. So a better question might be a deeper question, or a clarifying question, or simply ask if what the other person said you heard correctly, right? This is what I heard, ... Is this what you meant? Okay. If they say yes, here is probably one of my favorite phrases of all time. Tell me more. Tell me more. Imagine if someone said that to you. You're having a conversation, it's a difficult conversation. You say your part and the person says, okay, did I get it right? They repeat what you said. Did I get it right? And you say, yes, that's what I meant. And then they say, is there more? They invite you to go further. Imagine they barely wanted to come to the conversation to begin with, and now they're inviting you to tell them more. How would you feel? I would feel great if someone said that to me. And in fact, they have, and I appreciated it very much. And I hope it's the same in reverse. So ask a better question. Number 7, cultivate curiosity. Be willing to be surprised by what you learn from using numbers 5 and 6, from listening to understand, not just to be right, and asking better questions. That will lead you to cultivate a sense of curiosity. Be willing to be surprised by what you learn, and I'll add to that, be willing to be wrong. Be willing to be wrong. There's a saying, often wrong, but never in doubt. How many times have you been so sure of your point of view, so sure of what happened, only to deconstruct the whole thing and you find out how wrong you were, how you misheard, how you misunderstood, how there was a gap of information and you filled in the gap with what was in your head, or you made up a whole movie about something. Be willing to not only be surprised, but be willing to be wrong, because sometimes being wrong is the gateway to understanding. Oh. Or if the person misunderstood you, that's when you can very easily say, okay, no wonder. Now I understand why I thought you had a tone. I thought you were sarcastic. That's how I heard you. But now that you tell me how you heard what you thought I said, I can understand why you're upset. I'd be upset too if I heard what you thought you heard. So I get it. I get it. You see, and right there, you're starting to rearrange the furniture a little bit. What you thought with certainty is really, I really wasn't right about that. And not being right is a good thing in that case. Okay, number 8. I'm going to race against the clock here a little bit. Number 8, seek not just higher ground, but common ground. Seek not just higher ground, but common ground. Look for the shared human experiences and values that connects you and the other person, even in the midst of disagreement, right? Look, we both want a fair resolution to this, right? We both want to win here. We both want to feel understood here. We're both coming at this. We've both carried this for a week or a month or whatever the case, 10 years, 10 years, whatever it is. If you say we both, and we want to arrive at a place that's mutually gratifying, that's a joining move. Can you hear that? You go from anticipated adversarial to collaborators. Let's look and work together to have an outcome that really is as comfortable as possible for both of us. Number 9, allow for nuances, right? Very few things in life are all black or all white. But boy, many of us walk around with just 2 columns with which to put all of life's events, interactions, emotions, just 2 columns. But I'm here to remind us all that gray, the mid-range, is very vast. It's very, how many shades of gray are there? How many shades, right? And so the mid ground is really where the action is. So if you are someone who tends to lean toward all or nothing thinking, try to think about that, because all or nothing, good or bad, black or white, this or that, yes or no, right or wrong, all of those are really impediments to understanding. Understanding is like this, right? It's a back and forth, it's a flow, it's a dance, it's a ballet, if you will. It's not, moshing, as we spoke a couple of weeks ago, right? And number 10, I think right under the buzzer, work with your mindset. Work with your mindset, not so much with the other person's, but with your mindset. Try to build a bridge rather than burn a bridge. Try to capitalize on what you both want. Now, sometimes differences are irreconcilable. And that's a fact of life. And there are all kinds of reasons for that, as I mentioned earlier. If that happens, sometimes a breather, a break, some distance. Yes, let's agree to disagree. Yes. But sometimes we can do a little better than let's agree to disagree. I mean, sometimes it comes down to that, and that's not terrible at all. But sometimes it's, you know what, we seem to be at an impasse, but I think we want what's best for ourselves and one another here. So let's leave it here. Let's see if anything occurs to either one of us, and if so, let's give each other, a call. But this I feel sad about where we are. I feel sad that we couldn't bridge this. I really, I liked having you in my life or in my daily life, whatever. I mean, acknowledge the upset, but do it in a way that legitimizes the effort that you both made. And we have to live with that. We have to live with the disappointment that not every conversation is going to be a home run kind of thing, right? But we want to bring a certain level of respect and open-mindedness and problem-solving skills and a spirit of collaboration wherever we go. And then if it doesn't happen, well, we have to let the chips fall where they may, and we have to accept that. And that's probably a whole other conversation in itself. So my hope is that each of us will take this into our week And if we bump up against any difficulties with people, hopefully we can address it before it becomes, a volcanic level. And I hope that we can take these strategies to the other person and with humility and emotional intelligence, try to move the needle on having a deeper understanding. Now, I am aware there are some other comments in the chat. I'm going to read them later, and because there's so much, I was going to do active listening next week, and I think I am going to do that, but I'm going to keep these questions in mind, answer them next week, and then move into active listening. Sometimes we think that listening to a person as they present their side is too passive. We're not doing anything. Let me tell you, listening, if it's done appropriately, correctly, skillfully, mindfully, is far from passive. Active listening is really a gift you give to yourself and the other person and to the conversation. So I hope all of you in the chat can come back next week. I see Tammy's here. Welcome, Tammy. Good to see you. Patricia has a follow-up. Catherine, a follow-up. Wayne, you too. Dawn, I see you in the chat. Everybody come back next week. There's never enough time. I love that you're here. Thank you for honoring me with your time and attention. You've been listening to Who Do You Think You Are? Who you think you are is just a fraction of who you really are. Who you really are is infinitely more magnificent. Let's remember that and remind each other this week. Until next time, take good care of yourself. Be well and know that you are loved. Good night.